Our face is so linked to our identity. It's how our family or friends recognize us. It's on our documents, on our IDs, so you would think your looks are unique, right? Well, apparently that's just an illusion. Scientists are saying that a person has roughly around six doppelgangers around there in the world. But what's a doppelganger? Well, a doppelganger is someone who is non-biologically related whatsoever, so no DNA is shared, but for some weird reason has the same, very similar features. But before we start, please consider subscribing if you like this type of stories, and not only maybe mysteries and surprising facts. I plan on covering those in the future, and also I plan to post 1 or maybe even 2 times per week. So yeah, if you like this type of things, please subscribe and turn on all notifications so you know when I upload next video. Now let's get started with today's story. Olga Tsvik, a 35-year-old Ukrainian woman, has moved from Ukraine to the United States, and she was working as a beautician in a New York salon. So she was doing her own thing, she had lots of experience, and she had her own clientele. She was basically building a new life for herself. One day in August 2016, she gets this call from a woman who says that she needs to take her in as soon as possible because she has a lash emergency. The next day, she's going into vacation into Mexico, and she needs her help. Olga is reluctant at first, and she says, you know, it's my day off, I cannot help you, just make an appointment, go to the salon. But this woman is extremely pushy, so Olga gives in and says, okay, just come to this address and I will help you. The woman's name is Victoria Nazirova, and she's a 47-year-old Russian immigrant. When the woman comes in to Olga's apartment, she brings with her 3 slices of cheesecakes. She says this is from a famous bakery and it's the best cheesecake she ever had in her life. She eats 2 of the pieces and she insists that Olga eats the remaining 1. And Olga does. Immediately as she eats the piece of cake, Olga starts feeling ill. Her fingertips are numb, she's sweating profusely, and she's feeling very nauseous. She just lays down on the bed and she tells Victoria, Vika, I'm feeling very, very bad. But Victoria assures her that she is there for her and she will take good care of her. And as Olga is slipping in and out of consciousness, she is seeing Victoria going through the apartment, you know, looking into things, looking into the furniture, the drawers, and so on. But she cannot react in any way. Next day, Olga's neighbor, who is also a friend, sees this woman going in and out of Olga's apartment. And when they ask her what is she doing there, she's telling them that Olga is feeling ill and she came to check in on her. Not hearing from Olga more than a day, the neighbor decides to go in and check in on Olga as well. So they go into the apartment, and as soon as they enter, they feel this wave of heat coming to them. It's extremely hot. It's August outside, so it's already very hot. But the heat in Olga's apartment is turned up to maximum. As soon as they look around, they realize something is not good. Olga is passed out on a bed, and she's wearing this very flimsy lingerie, and all around her there are pills scattered, like a lot of pills on the floor, on the bed, everywhere. So they're thinking, you know, what's this? It looks like Olga tried to hurt herself. So the friend immediately calls an ambulance, and Olga is rushed into the hospital where she stays for a few days. She drifts into a coma for 34 minutes, but fortunately doctors are able to help her make a full recovery. As soon as she gets home and she gets into her apartment, she realizes that something is not right. Some things are missing. She's missing some bags, she's missing some valuable items, also some cash, but also her ID. She doesn't have her ID, she cannot find it anywhere. So she calls the police and she tells them exactly what happened, and she points towards Victoria. She tells them, like, this woman came into my apartment and immediately as I ate this cheesecake that she brought with her, I passed out and I don't remember anything. She believes Victoria laced her cheesecake and then robbed her. However, the police do not believe this is the case. they do find the recipients in which the cheesecake was held into the waste bags, so they take them in and file them as evidence. But when they test the content, there's nothing in the cheesecake. The cheesecake is clean, so there's nothing there. But indeed, they do find Victoria's DNA on the actual recipients. So Olga claims do not add up and the police don't see any motive, so they just dismiss the case. Olga at this point has nothing else to do than to return to work, and she would tell her traumatizing story to whoever will listen. So this client listened to her story and then she says, my husband's friend has a very similar story to yours, and this is what happened to him. And she proceeds to tell Olga how he met this Russian woman on a Russian dating website, and she said she's a great cook and she loves to cook, and she invited him to her place for dinner. And he went, his name is Ruben, and as soon as he took a bite of the fish that she prepared, he passed out and he remembers nothing. When he woke up, and after 2 days, he was brought to his place. At this point, he was missing cash, he was missing watch, he was missing money out of his cards, he was missing all the valuables that he had at hand. That woman that he met was none other than Victoria Nazirova. A few months later, a new witness comes to the police, and it's Olga's neighbor. Based on their testimony, the police now reopen the case and decide to look into it further. So as they reanalyze the content of the cheesecake recipients, they are able to find that this is laced indeed with phenazepam. This is used as prescribed medication in Russia to treat multiple neurological conditions, but in high doses it can lead to coma and eventually death. So now it's clear that indeed Olga was right and Victoria did lace her cheesecake and did rob her. So the police are now looking for Victoria. But unbeknownst to them, someone else was looking for Victoria, a private eye hired by Nadia Ford. Nadia is a Russian woman who moved also to New York years back. Her mother, though, stayed back in Russia, and in 2014 had a new neighbor moved in the same building. The neighbor was Victoria Nazirova. She befriended Alla Alexenko, Nadia's mother, and was a lot around Alla, so Nadia would hear a lot about Victoria from her mother. When Alla didn't reply to Nadia's calls and was nowhere to be found, Nadia had some suspicions about Victoria. As soon as she got her hand on her mother's phone records and she saw that her last call was from Victoria, she knew without a doubt that Victoria had something to do with her mother's disappearance. The police are able to find some pictures of the car that Victoria rented the day that Alla disappeared that were taken by a traffic camera on the highway. And although blurry, they believe that inside the car was Victoria driving and also Alla in the seat next to her. Alla's short remains were found about 2 hours' drive from her apartment. Once the police decided to bring Victoria in for a polygraph test, she disappeared. She took a first flight out of the country and just vanished. In an ironical twist, the detective that Nadia hired discovered that Victoria was living a few blocks away from Nadia. Because of COVID, her trial was delayed and it took place early this year, and she was convicted to 21 years in jail. However, as she served already a few years, she will probably be out in 15 years. It appears that her fellow inmates do not really like her because she was very badly beaten in prison. When she'll be out, most probably she will be deported back to Russia because she's not a US citizen. During the trial and putting all the puzzle pieces together, it's believed that Victoria tried to take Olga's life away because she wanted to steal her identity. Olga looked a lot like Victoria and Victoria stole her ID, and considering that she was wanted in Russia and her stay was expiring in the United States, it's most probable that she was trying to get a new identity. This theory is supported also by the fact that phenazepam is working way better and its effects are more amplified in extreme heat. And if you remember, when the neighbor went into Olga's apartment, the heat was turned on to maximum. Fortunately, in the story, the villain did not get away with it. But Unfortunately, that's not the case in our next story. On August 16, 2022, a mother and a father go into a police station in southern Germany to report missing their 23-year-old daughter. Sharaban was supposed to meet her husband, who she wanted to divorce, but after seeing him, she was not answering her phone and she was nowhere to be found. This was out of character for her, so her parents grew concerned and they traveled from another city to search for her. As they were driving around, they saw their daughter's car, and as they were approaching it, they weren't seeing their daughter anywhere in sight. As they looked around trying to find some clues that could lead them to their daughter, looking out into the tinted windows, they could see the body of a young woman on the back seat. She was wrapped in blankets, and there was no doubt that that was their daughter. She had been stabbed multiple times and her face was severely wounded. But the next day, the autopsy report reveals a huge surprise. Turns out that the woman in the car is not the missing daughter, but it's another woman who looks exactly just like her. The police are able to very soon find the missing woman in the apartment of a friend. Both of them are taken into custody as the suspects of taking the life of Sharaban's doppelganger. The woman in the car is identified as 23 years old Algerian woman named Khadija, who is a beauty blogger. It seems that Sharaban set up a fake Instagram account and she contacted multiple women who resembled her. She was trying to find someone who looked a lot like her and trying to lure them into meeting her. Khadija fell into her trap and believed her when she asked her to meet to hand her over a set of beauty products. Except Sharaban took her into a forested area, and there she proceeded to stab her multiple times and to disfigure her face. By the latest account, it's believed that Sharaban was trying to fake her own murder in order to avoid a family dispute. In 1999, a man tried to steal a woman's purse in the parking lot of a Walmart in Kansas. The woman fought back and managed to escape and to take her purse back, but the aggressor took indeed her cell phone. During the fight, the woman fell and scraped her knees, but she was left unharmed otherwise. The robbery was reported to the police, and the eyewitnesses identified the man as Rick, a light-skinned African-American or Hispanic man with long hair pulled back. Based on this description and being picked out of a set of 6 mugshots by the victim and other witnesses, Richard Anthony Jones was brought into the police station and interviewed. He denied any implication in the robbery, and he stated that at the time that the robbery was unfolding, he was attending his girlfriend's party, and many other people saw him there. And indeed, guests testified that they saw him there at the same time. But the jury was not convinced by his alibi, and Jones, who had a criminal record, was sentenced to 19 years in prison. But 17 years later, Jones has found out that in the same prison as him, there's a person, a man who looks exactly like him. So with the help of the members of this program that helps wrongfully convicted people prove their innocence, they were able to identify this man as Ricky Lee Amos. When questioned, the man denied having any implication in the robbery. But when shown the pictures of the 2 men next to the other, the witnesses said that indeed they cannot tell which is one and which is the other, and they cannot clearly and without a doubt identify the robber out of the 2 people. This led to Jones's release from prison after 17 years, and he will be also receiving $1.1 million for the mistaken conviction. That's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please consider pressing the like and subscribe buttons. I appreciate your support. See you next time.